88.5 Surf FM is now 4 minutes after the hour of 10 a.m. in Surface and Lucia and the Eastern Caribbean. Good morning to you. It's a beautiful day and of course another edition of House Guest. It's dated the 21st day of November 2024. I am excited to present this panel. Here with me this morning we have none other than my good friend Mr. Eristhee. Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you here. And of course joined by Miss Strawn. It's a beautiful Thursday, like I did say. Welcome to Super FM.
Thank you, Cabrina. Thank you for having us. Morning.
Good morning, listeners. Karina, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the invite and would love to share as much as I can.
We most welcome. I'm seeing that smile. With that, I'm going to say we just saw the observance of International Men's Day under the theme positive role models. How was that day spent by you?
You know, the very strange thing is that I didn't realize it was International Men's Day until I got a few WhatsApps from some friends. And I will tell you, I spent it doing the same thing I do all the time, mainly work and trying to reach out to people. But on a serious note, I thought that it was a very interesting observance, and because of that, I wanted to know more about it. And the I realized that it should be a day when people are more aware of the issues and the things that face men. It's not about a gender inequality, that we speak about, but men suffer abuse, suicide. I mean, loss of jobs and stuff like that. There are a lot of pressures on men, and that day is usually there to bring some sort of awareness to some of the issues that men face.
Definitely. And with that, I can add men believe too many times they were actually placed on the sidelines as well, and enough recognition are not being given to them. Why do you think such?
No, I don't claim to be any authority on the subject. So please forgive me, but in my opinion, I believe that society create men and boys and how they react to certain things. I believe that societal pressures, how men are raised, the expectation from men, these things put certain pressures, and the belief that you have to keep your emotions inside. Sometimes these things actually put pressures on men that make them feel they have no outlet, nowhere to go. And these are things that we should be aware of. Very recently, um, I think USAID was having some sort of survey about gender and gender inequalities, and for some reason they called me up and said, "Hey, we figure you know a lot about this," and I said, "No, I don't." But one of the things that I really feel strongly about is that we need to educate men. And I think too many men, too many young boys are actually falling through the cracks in the education system. And as a result, they're not getting the support that they need to basically, I think, play a bigger role in the society that we have.
Thank you so much for that. Would you say your upbringing actually had a great part to play in shaping who you are today?
I would say definitely, and I often make reference to my upbringing and the fact that in my life I saw my mother as the leader of the home. I didn't see my father as the leader of the home. My father brought in the finances, and as little as it was, my mother made do with it and made, I mean, wonders. I mean, I my grandmother, I think, as well. And I think this is mirrored a lot in society, in St. Lucian society. And I say to people that when we speak about the gender inequalities, especially where males and females are concerned, that in many instances, we should look at the layout or the country where this occurs, and we shouldn't lump all the countries together. I mean, I read somewhere a while back that St. Lucia was in the top 10 countries in the world where your boss would be a female. And I think whenever I go to meetings, I count how many men are in the room, and I can assure you that very often I am at least one of five men in that room. And I think about this, and it has actually made me think a lot about the work that I do. And I try a lot to try to get these young men from off the streets and to recognize their skills, because, a lot of it is feeling undervalued. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that you see the guys and you're like, oh, yeah, he didn't stay long in school, but these guys have skills, they have knowledge. And recognizing those skills and recognizing those values, putting value to it, is important. And it increases self-worth, and I think education is one. And that is why I was really keen on starting up this CVQ car restoration, a technical vocational education training thing done by the Ministry of Education in St. Lucia, Tibet Council. I believe education is the key. So it doesn't have to be that academic thing, but recognizing that the skills that you have value, and they're technical, and you're competent. That competency has value.
Definitely. Miss Tron, you wish to add your voice to this?
I think Mr. Eristhee have said it all.
Definitely. So, in the conversation, you made mention of the choral with training or education purposes. We know there have been ongoing training as it has to do with the coral reef. A few persons from Barron's Drive actually were privy to that initiative. I want you to maybe share more with the listening audience. How far are we to this very date?
Rita, would you like
Okay,
to?
sure. So currently we have 15 to 18 trained coral gardeners, certified coral gardeners, slash fishers from Barron's Drive for Beignet, new development area. So what those coral gardeners would do is that they would maintain and enhance the coral reefs around Soufre. That is through Clay Caribbean, with Mr. Eristhee being the operational manager director. It's been a collaborative effort where we engaged persons from the community, the Department of Fisheries, myself being the extension officer for the area. Is it Action Divers?
Action Adventure Divers,
Yes,
yes.
Chester Nathaniel is on board with us. So we have a team of qualified and I'm looking forward to describe my team, that we can care and enhance our reef restore as much as possible. They've been on the ground, they're very knowledgeable. We've gone to the schools and passed on the information about the project, raised the awareness as it relates to the project and the activities that it entails. We've done the Soufre Basin, we've done Font Saint Jacques, Canneries, and Slurry Marigot, and we intend to continue that education and awareness program.
Okay. For persons who are actually interested, walk can the, can you walk through the process, please?
Well, persons can express interest, but that comes with the availability of funding. So they could either reach out to myself or Mr. Eristhee. And when funding becomes available, the training will happen, where they get trained in scuba diving with Chester Nathaniel, and they would do the restoration activities. Also, Mr. Eristhee made mention of the CVQ. Coming in as a coral gardener, that's one of the requirements that we would ask of you to enroll in the CVQ program, because it covers a number of components, a number of modules that would prepare you better for the job as it entails underwater.
Okay. Yes. I actually, if I may add, I all you need is interest. I think
Yes.
interest and a commitment, because everything comes with a commitment. If you're not ready to come and do this work, you shouldn't start, because it requires you to work with others. If you can't work with others, then we have a problem. As a matter of fact, that is one of the modules in the
Yes, team
CBQ:
building.
how to work with others, uh, and basic biology of corals. The fact that they reproduce both sexually and asexually. That is by fragments and with sperm and eggs coming together. Now, I think that we have a lot of successes, and we don't, a lot of times we don't say a lot about it. We have people who started the program, and we train them as PADI open water divers. And I know at least two of them are now dive master qualified. So they have gone higher up.
Hmm.
And there's at least one scuba instructor now who came from the ranks of not being certified as a scuba diver. And so we see this as a natural progression, and a natural advancement of individuals within the community. And I would say it's not only men, but we have a number of women involved in this. And as a matter of fact, one of them has been qualified as a dive master. So I think that these are successes in the community that we really should talk about. And I think that having the community involved in the reef restoration and enhancement activities, while having a supplementary livelihood, or side job that they can get a little piece of money from, is a very important thing. And this, credit for all of this goes towards the Department of Fisheries, the funders. We've had funding from the International American Foundation, from Sandals Foundation. Sandals Foundation was the organization that gave us seed money. GIZ. I mean, I think from a perspective where it started from 2017 to now, I think there's a lot that has happened, and there's a lot that continues to happen in the face of Beryl, the storm surges that pretty much destroyed the coastline here in St. Lucia. Also had a serious impact on the water. It transformed the underwater landscape negatively, and destroyed a lot of the work of the coral gardeners. Um, so we also see coral bleaching. I mean, sea surface temperatures have been so warm, and I have never seen it like that. We had temperatures of 31 degrees Celsius, 50 feet under the water. Never felt like that. And because of it, it has destroyed or bleached a lot of corals. And that makes it all the more necessary for us to focus on reef enhancement activities and highlight the work that our coral gardeners have been doing here in Soufriere.
Wow, you actually hit part of the nail. I was about to ask in terms of the coral reef enhancement and also what is put in place in terms of monitoring, because we know with anything that is implemented, there comes the evaluation and monitoring process to really be able to tell where your strengths and your weaknesses are. So, can you bring us up to speed as well?
Of course, in terms of monitoring, that is something that's continuous. We actually
By the Department of Fisheries, along with.
we actually have our close collaboration with the Department of Fisheries. Um, we have our extension officer here who work closely with us, and the fact that Rita is from Soufriere and knows everybody well makes it all the better in terms of monitoring. But in terms of the actual physical underwater monitoring. You have the coral gardeners weekly go in and check on the corals to see what is going on. We have a nursery here where we've actually altered it to have ropes. So we actually put the corals on ropes and they're actually suspended in the water. And we there was a bleaching event last year, and what we attempted to do is to put genotypes or corals with that we believe were resilient to the high temperatures in this nursery. And to a certain extent, that was very, very useful because our continuous monitoring this year during the bleaching event or the heating event that was actually higher than last year, we realized some of the corals did not bleach. So those are ones that we definitely need to propagate. And what we've realized on our monitoring um, dives is that the temperatures have now started to decrease, and we are finding that some of the corals are now regaining the color, which is indicating that they're actually very resilient. And we found that it was only in the last few weeks of October, after several months of heating, that they started to bleach. And we believe that getting a lot more genotypes, staghorns, corals from different areas, elkhorn corals right now, if they're not bleached, these are the ones we need to bring into the nursery so that we could have a repository of very resistant corals and to populate these around St. Lucia. In fact, um, uh, recently there's been a lot of talk about perhaps bringing corals from other places because there is um, especially for the staghorn, we're seeing very few of those, and we're thinking that these may become extinct pretty soon. So there's a lot of discussions, and there are things that I believe that put our coral gardeners on the forefront of this discussion and this activity.
Okay.
And just to
I
add,
am of the view is overfishing or even the various activities that are done in the bay would affect the coral reef to some extent.
I will say something, and then I will allow Rita to speak. But I believe that fishers have gotten a bad rap. I know that there's a lot of talk about overfishing.
there's no
You,
data to justify that.
but you know what? We're a small island.
Mhm.
We need to feed ourselves.
Exactly.
Our people need to eat, and that is where we go to eat. And what we need to do right now is think about sustainable use.
Practices. Mhm.
And I think pollution is a very big factor. We have a number of coastal developments that bring in hundreds of people daily that contribute negatively to the pollution in our bays. No one speaks about it. And I'm not saying that from the perspective of someone who is a member of the Soufriere Fishermen's Cooperative, but I am speaking from the perspective of a scientist. I am a marine scientist. That's how I was trained. And it is not one thing, several things impact the oceans. And it's not just fishing.
Wow. That's true. You were saying?
I think Mr. Eristhee have said something that I was going to say. Most persons who talk about overfishing, where's the data to justify such a statement? I mean, Soufriere, we know its tradition that persons is a fishing village. Um, why not look at the other aspects that would affect maybe low landings, climate change, and all of that? We quick to say overfishing.
You know,
And just to stick a point as to what Mr. Eristhee would have mentioned previously, hence we have an upcoming activity with the coral gardeners that they would be diving, snorkeling from the Maria Island islet down to canneries to identify or to see where they can find staghorn and elkhorn species to continue the industry work on coral restoration. And just to big our coral gardeners up, they are the only recognized and certified group in the region.
Yes, they
Yes.
they are actually ones who have CVQ in coral restoration and gardening, and that is recognized regionally. And one of them is a lady, a female. Okay, it is
Chanela James Sylvester.
Festa. Yes. So from Soufriere, from Barons Drive. So when we're talking about this, we this is not just about Soufriere. This is a national issue. This is a national resource, and the Department of Fisheries has been at the forefront of this, collaborating with us to try to get us to move forward. Because obviously we have resource limitations of the department. There's always financial issues in terms of recruitment, and that is not unique to St. Lucia. It's in the region throughout, and you know, being St. Lucian and then being here and having the ability, I think, it's just my need and desire to continue and to move this forward.
I'm happy you're saying that. Where is Claire Caribbean in all of this? And we're seeing there's a season coming to a close, and I know there are a lot of exciting projects. Some have been undertaken, and again, here's the platform to outline everything from Claire Caribbean.
Well, well, Clear Caribbean. I am the operations director in St. Lucia, and we have been working with Sandals Foundation. We have been working with the Department of Fisheries, collaborating with them. In fact, they're a very important partner. We have recently completed a shark awareness and education program with the Department of Fisheries, and Rita here was very instrumental in doing this. It could not have happened without her and the Department of Fisheries, um, because we it was so interesting. We didn't know much about sharks per se. And we sought to obtain information from all the landing sites in St. Lucia. And we conducted a survey, and it led to um, the interest in having workshops and having kind of pictures of the sharks that we have in St. Lucia. We actually went to the schools. Desitang Combined School was the primary school that we visited. And we had people from the Georgia Aquarium, the largest aquarium in the United States. They came to St. Lucia, and they participated in sharing their knowledge with us. Um, I think over, yeah, we actually contacted or interacted with over 150 persons
Yeah.
in less than a week.
In
and
40s.
and there was excitement and interest. So there's that. There's also the fact that the coral gardeners in Soufriere, what we have been attempting to do is to formalize their relationship and their name and get them more structured, just like we had the boat boys. The SMME attempted to develop the structure for the boat boys in Soufriere, and that's something that we are actively doing. And the idea is that these are coral gardeners, and we need right now they're obtaining some sort of supplementary income, but it needs to be sustainable and not dependent on grant funding. And so the Inter-American Foundation has actually sponsored a project where we would look at developing a tour with these guys, with the coral gardeners at the forefront, so that they can actually develop funding to showcase the work that they're doing, to actually help increase financial support for the work that they're doing. And that is something, that's another project that is ongoing. And I can say that we had discussions with the Department of Fisheries as well about the possibility of reef enhancement activities that include some sort of artificial reef. Because really, when we look at it, the coral bleaching event have actually had a negative impact on the startup of the tours or the financial, sustainable financial mechanisms for the coral gardeners. And the thought was, you know what, if we have some sort of artificial reef enhancement, some sort of attraction in the nursery, it will help bring people. But not only are we thinking of the coral gardeners, we're thinking of the larger thing where there have been complaints from the hotels like Anchasney and Sugar Beach about a whole mass of snorkelers coming in certain areas and basically making it unsafe. And if we can attract some of them to the areas where the coral gardeners are, reduce the impact or the numbers on those areas, and have them visiting another site, that it is also going to help. So it's not only about thinking of one group. It is basically thinking of how it can impact not only Soufriere but nationally. I think this is a national process.
Okay, we also know that the marine life, in terms of the fishes, basically feed on the coral. And with the bleaching aspect of it, I noticed with seriously, and on the bleaching aspect of it, what are the hazards? I mean, in terms of human.
You mentioned something that marine animals feed on the corals.
Corals are marine animals.
Corals are marine animals,
Yes.
and yes, there are some species of fish that actively feed on corals. But when we think about the impact on our oceans and our marine space, we have to think of the land. Okay.
Reef to
And
reef.
it's a process where we have to think of what goes on
Inland.
inland, and whatever goes on inland impacts the oceans. Because when you have rainfall that will actually take whatever chemical that is in there in the mountains, in the farmlands, anything that happens up there is going to reach the sea, and there is going to be an impact. Um, in many ways, if you have the accumulation of chemicals in fish, larger fish eat the smaller fish, and it goes up the food chain, and we eat that fish, it can have an impact on humans. So we have to think of these things. I remember speaking to an environmental biologist and medical doctor, and he said to us that only females are able to reduce the chemicals in their bodies. And the only way they're able to do that is by lactating when they feed their babies. So each generation starts out at having the level of chemicals in their body that their mothers have. And these directly impact our health. And so we have to look at environmental health, not only in the oceans, but in the land.
Thank you for that. The scary part of it, Rita may not like that so much, but I have witnessed the presence of sharks in the Suffolk Bay, and I'm really happy you confirmed to an extent there are species of sharks here. I'm yet to ask how many species are there, and we know sharks are dangerous for sure.
No, we should
And
break that notion.
in terms of we do not
No.
want to create panic in the Suffolk Bay, but I have witnessed it, and other persons have brought it to my attention as well. So, what steps are gonna be
So
implemented and whatnot?
it's not about steps being
Signage
implemented,
and
but the
keeping the
whole
place safe.
SHAC education and awareness session, the objective was to increase the education of St. Lucians, yourself, about types of sharks, the importance of sharks to the ecosystem, and the sustainable use of shark species. So I conducted surveys around around St. Lucia, the 10 landing sites, 100 participants. Most of persons indicated that they had seen sharks or had encounters with sharks, nothing negative. Um, the species that were mostly seen or recorded in the survey was the nurse shark, which you would see around the reefs. The tiger, the tiger was the most common one. The hammerhead, the nurse shark I told you, the mako, and as it relates to the great white, we will put several question marks there because in our Caribbean waters, there should not be, in inverted commas, the great white sharks. So it might have been one
Attention.
that the fishers misidentified. It might have just been a mako, but they said it was a great white. So I will tell you what I learned from the Georgia Aquarium. Sharks are the keystones in the ecosystem,
Keystone species.
the keystone species. So if we take away the sharks, then the pyramid will come down crashing. Sharks keep the ecosystem balance for a number of reasons. So it's your interaction with sharks and the persons that we engage with, the children, the fishers, the fisher cooperatives, the divers, everybody was told the way that they would interact. The shark has brains. They think, is that a predator or is it somebody? So if you were to see a shark and you panic, of course the shark would react. So it's not scary. Sharks play a vital role in keeping the ecosystem balance. Yeah, as with anything, all species have their role in the ocean. The parrotfish, they clean the corals. The sharks, they keep the ecosystem balance. So it's that notion that we would want to break. Georgia Aquarium did that greatly. Um, Mr. Eristhee, did I miss anything?
No, I think you said it well because the sharks are the ones that are going to get rid of the sick and dying animals, and
Yeah.
and essentially, if you remove the sharks, then you're going to have an increase in the numbers of the animals that they feed on, and sharks, some sharks eat rays. The nurse shark love count. They don't eat human beings, and of course the interactions. There's no, we don't use the term shark attacks. It's about interactions because very often, uh, either there's some belief that there's food. Somebody is diving with a string of fish, and see, well, hey, a free meal. Nobody wants to work too hard to get a meal, and
That's true.
and that is where sometimes it's misunderstood. And I think a lot of the times the negative opinion was as a result of that movie Jaws,
Yes.
and and of course, it isn't like that at all. One of the things that we highlighted here in St. Lucia, because there's in certain parts of the world, people just cut the fins of the shark and take the fin because it has some, well, it's alleged that it has some health properties, and they leave the rest. Here we land sharks. It is part of our fishery. We have records of the quantity, the number of tons of shark landed in St. Lucia yearly, and that is sold and it is eaten.
Yeah.
So we're talking about sustainable use and harvesting of pelagic species and species in our marine space for our use. As I said before, we need to eat, we need to feed
And
ourselves.
just to,
Definitely.
though our sample size was small given our population, but we interacted with the persons that would have encounters with sharks. And more than half of them said that sharks are not threats to humans.
I'll take it into consideration. Thank you so much for that. Department of Fisheries as well as Clear Caribbean, um, is it fair to say with climate change as well, we've seen an increased number I mean, sharks being recorded in St. Lucia and whatnot,
No.
because they go into deeper waters and stuff,
As a matter of fact, there are fewer
deeper warmer
recorded
waters.
Of sharks.
sightings of sharks in St. Lucia. As a matter of fact, the landings in previous years were significantly higher of sharks. And perhaps again with climate change, you're seeing that temperature may be influencing prey and food, and it may be influencing the migration patterns of pelagic fish. And these, well, I'm sure everybody would say, well, we haven't seen a flying fish in St. Lucia for
Yeah.
a while. I mean, even Barbados, the land of flying fish, are having issues finding them. So definitely climate change is impacting us at the level of our food chain, as well as at the level of the resources in our coral reefs, stuff that we depend on, that we don't even think that the majority, a lot of the tourists who visit St. Lucia come because of our corals. I mean, 98, I would say 95 to 98% of all the diving done in St. Lucia is done along the west coast of St. Lucia and within the area of the SMMA. Just think about that. So we need to be cognizant of the impact of climate change and look at how we can mitigate and what we can do ourselves to reduce that impact. There is one other project that I feel to mention that we actually was considering marine litter, again
Yeah.
in association with
Sandals
Sandals
Foundation.
Foundation, looking at reducing marine litter, and that's a project that we hope to undertake in the early new year. um, and that would involve doing marine cleanups, going to schools, and providing some bins and stuff like that, so as to reduce the impact of marine litter. And I think that plastics, plastics are not going anywhere soon, but there is a need to really look at plastics, microplastics. Those those the large pieces of plastic, they break down into smaller pieces,
Yeah.
and pieces that are so small that you can't see. And there was a thought that they would pass through the blood tissue barrier. And I read a paper, a very interesting one, a few months ago, that spoke about finding microplastics in the tissues of men.
Yeah.
And actually, the theory in that paper was that it could very well impact, or perhaps influence erectile dysfunction in men, because it was discovered in the blood tissue, penile tissue of cadavers. So we are really impacting our environment, and we really need to start taking stock of what we're doing. And I am a firm believer in persons learning by doing. And if we can have critical mass, we already have coral gardeners from the community, and they're learning by doing. And they've learned a lot about the ocean, as well as adding to their fisheries knowledge and how they can impact negatively as well as positively the resource that their life and their livelihood depends on.
Definitely, and I think education will basically be, the basis to all of that. I agree with you in terms of the marine litter, and as well, we have to look again at the reach to reef effect overall.
Yes.
If I may ask you, did the training itself met its objective, and moving forward, what can be implemented by the fisheries in terms of the shark awareness and stuff like that?
So the another facet or another objective, another activity to the session that Sandals Foundation and Georgia Aquarium came to do was to train trainers. So we've trained over 20, close to 30 persons, and those 30 persons, including myself, including Mr. Eristhee, are supposed to engage with 10 other fishers, not other fishers, but other persons. I don't know who is it, Mr. Eristhee or myself, that will claim that we interacted with you as one of our persons, but the goal is for those 30 persons by March of 2025 to have engaged with 10 persons from their community, in their family circle, and report to me so I can then report to Sandals Foundation. As we speak today, the 21st of November, we at 40 persons already. So 40 and counting. I've had the data collector from Savans given me her list. Denry has submitted a few names, Soufre, and the list can go on Labry. So we are to continue that engagement, and not only in March of 2025, but beyond. You asked me whether the objectives was achieved. We we over how we say it, Mr. Ariste? We
Under promise, but
we
over delivered.
under promised, but we over delivered.
It was supposed to be 100 persons.
It was
And
supposed to be 90
yeah,
persons, 30 students,
yes.
30 fishers, and 30 trainers. But as we speak, we're at 150. And it was very participatory. It was very interactive. The facilitators were wowed by the fishers and the communities that we engaged in, the students. It was just flowing. So we are happy as locals, as Clare Caribbean, as the Department of Fisheries, to see that we gave Georgia Aquarium and Sandals Foundation our full support throughout the 4 days. There were some days that we had 2 sessions a day. And they came, they met their goal, and they were able to report in a successful manner. Their trip was worth the while. And just to add, whilst they were there, they also engaged with staff members of Sandals. So we're not even counting the amount of staff members that they would have engaged in. We're just accounting for our bit, which was over delivered.
Nice. I like to put people on the spot a little in terms of
And I don't like that.
in terms of it's pretty easy in terms of the features. And we saw, the impacts again with the hurricane season, especially Beryl. What measures are being put in place, to avoid similar catastrophe
We cannot avoid similar catastrophes as
in
we
terms of the
cannot
board
predict it. But
securing
our
also
fishers are very resilient. I must tell you, it
stubborn
was fisher. No,
sometimes.
no, 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 no. I won't agree with you on that one. I can speak for my fishers. They are very resilient. They're very understanding when it comes to me that I call them, we have to do this, we have to do that. The new president can vouch for me too. Um, I must tell you, and I must commend them, it was fishermen's feast activities that was going on. And before 11 o'clock in the morning, all of our fishing vessels were off the water. But we saw a different twist to Hurricane Beryl, where we thought was safe grounds, they were impacted there. So moving forward, we have to go back to the drawing board and see how we can kind of mitigate or become more resilient and not more prepared, because we are always alert as soon as Department of Fisheries or NEMO gives from NEMO, Department of Fisheries calls and say we need to do this, our fishers are here. So it's just a bit of more preparedness, not really preparedness, but
I would like to add something here, Rita. I think that to build resilience, you need to do certain things. And very recently, we had 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, we did a vulnerability reduction
Yes, with
assessment
FAO.
with FAO, and there's need for the ability to haul up boats, a wrench. There's need for trailers because a lot of fishers hauled up their boats, but they brought them. They were how should I say it? They were still too close after they hauled them up, but they brought them up based on what had happened before.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that there were a number of scenarios, storm surge scenarios, that were predicted, and I'd actually shown some of those in some computer models that showed that it occurred here in Soufriere, in an area that traditionally would not have suffered any damage. And so we now have to think of storms in a different way and think that we're going to be impacted more. There would be, we'd have to build differently. We'd have to have the resources to really get our boats out further afield. We have to think of safety of persons. We have to think of having early warning systems that would really help our fishers to move forward. And we have to look at how we can improve our landing site and our cooperative space because the fishers cooperative has suffered significant damage. I mean, up to now, we're still waiting on the marine pump because the marine pump was damaged. There was water in the electrical system. We're still trying to fix that. I mean, there's so many things that we can do, and again, it's going to be the same thing. We have to be prepared year after year whenever the hurricane season, and people are speaking now of a longer hurricane season and an earlier start to the hurricane season. So I think that the whole issue of climate change and stuff like that, and more or stronger, bigger hurricanes, is something that we definitely need to consider and put money in trying to mitigate and to build resilience.
I also think, given that we were, or you and your team, myself, was involved in doing the VCAs with FAO, it's now that it should be the time now to take them off the shelf.
I believe that, as a matter of fact, that project was part of the Green Climate Fund
Yes.
project. It was getting information for that, and it was submitted. The full project proposal was submitted by St. Lucia,
Yes.
and I do believe they're awaiting response. I'm not
Yeah.
sure where it is right now in the process, but the idea was that they had a number of recommendations coming out of the national consultations that we had because we went all around the country, and a project was developed, and funding and financing for things that would build the resilience of our coastal fishing communities was in that document. So I am not sure that it is on the shelf, Rita, but I think
When
it
I
is in
say
process.
not on the shelf, but then y'all went to the different sites. So it's now for the different sites to take action. Don't wait on the project. If you can, as a cooperative, there are little things,
That can be
low hanging fruits that you can implement that you could do.
Yes, I totally agree with that,
Yeah.
and there are other funding agencies
That can assist,
that can
yes.
assist.
Yeah.
With that, I will definitely ask, with your new addition to the cooperative, um, yes, Mr. Newton, with your addition now to the cooperative, what big transformation would you like to see happen there? What would you like to undertake?
I would say that it is my firm belief that the cooperative belongs to the members, and members, I would like to see more activity. I'd like to see them engaged more. Sometimes, I guess, perhaps in the past, they probably felt that they should just leave it to the board. But I think that we need to have engagement, and I personally would like to see a more active cooperative in Soufriere. I
Certainly.
want us to be the leading cooperative in Soufriere. I think we're capable. We need to, in my opinion, diversify, not only fuel. I think we need to cater more to our members. I think our members need to see more benefit from being members of a cooperative. And I think that when we look at other cooperatives, we should take the good and leave everything that's bad out there. But everything takes time. I don't expect anything to be transformed magically. It takes a lot of work. There
And
are
commitment.
there are a lot of things that we need to do, but definitely, I think that as a people and the members of our cooperative, we need to increase our membership. I mean, the,
Yes.
the membership of the cooperative is quite small. It is under 100 people. I mean, think about that. We need to engage more, and I think that we can do this. We have a capable group of people who have been working at the cooperative, and again, I think if everyone is committed and want to do more and see that they're actually getting more, I think that would certainly help.
So will you
Okay.
join, Sabrina?
When was the last AGM?
September
September
15th.
Okay.
of this year.
Yes.
And what outcome that was drawn from it?
Go, Mr. Eristhee.
Why we take quickly past the party?
No, he's the president.
Well,
I
that,
sit on
Because I
the.
saw both of you are looking at each other.
no, I was because actually as a member I went to the meeting, and for some reason the other members thought that I would make a very good addition to the board, and subsequent to that I was elected to be the president of the board of the Fishers Co-op. And we have had at least two meetings so far with the board, and we are actively looking at doing a lot of things. One of the things that we was forced on us was the environmental health division just came and said, "Hey, you have all these boats here. They're attracting mosquitoes, and they're being stored um, in a way that would not be very good. You need to do some of these things." And they gave a list of stuff that we had to do, and we're trying to do that. And I think that by engaging our members in these activities, we can, build a better appreciation for the facility that we have. Um, there was a recent solarization project Jeff funded, where the electricity bill for the cooperative was sometimes in excess monthly in excess of $8,000, and the solar panels that you see on the roof now has actually reduced the electricity bill right now to zero. As a matter of fact, they have a credit of almost 50% of what they used to pay. But that is part of the grid tie system. And it is not only good for the environment, but it's also good for the cooperative. The fact that we lost quite a bit of revenue because of Barrow. There's no revenue July and August because of that and the damage that occurred. So, you know, there are a lot of things that we need to work on. As a matter of fact, the other one was there's an MOU that was proposed between the Soufriere Regional Development Foundation and the Soufriere Fishermen's Co-op to facilitate the disembarkation of visitors to Soufriere because of the damage to the jetties, and we're still waiting on a signed copy. um, and we hope to get that soon from you guys. But that comes with a discussion about revenue as well, because I mentioned we need to diversify, and of course having some revenue from that stream would definitely assist us in that regard. I believe that every organization in Soufriere um, should be thinking of not only its members, but of the community as well as its national impact. And that is where I want to see everything going.
Nice. We're going to end it nicely. It's
Yes.
11 a.m. in Surface and Lotion, of course, the Eastern Caribbean. Very interesting conversation. And I say you will be back here, with so much happening. Missed a lot. You mentioned planned activities. What do you have in store for your staff, I mean, members for the Christmas season?
At this point, it is too early to tell. We are still taking stock of the financial situation. The financial impact of Beryl, as we mentioned, has been significant. And we definitely would like to see if we're in a position to at least do something for our members. I think it is very important that our members see that they are benefiting from the cooperative, and we intend to make sure that this is done. But the exact manner and mechanism as to how this is done, again, we'll have to sit with the board, discuss, and see how we can best able or best, present something to our members.
Okay. Rita posed the question if I'm interested in becoming a member. It depends on the requirements, for sure. How does one become a member?
Also, there's an Mr. Eristhee,
Yes.
there's an application form that you would have to request from the staff members at the Soufriere Fishermen's Cooperative. It is tabled at a board meeting for approval or disapproval.
And there's a minimum number of shares in which you need to purchase,
Deposit and has to be made.
and that there are payment terms in terms of purchasing those shares. And I think that right now we should be increasing our membership and actively, putting a drive together to get members to join. And it's should be seen not only as exclusively fishers, in actual fact, a lot of cooperatives in St. Lucia right now are recognizing that membership should be a bit broader.
Fishers and consumers.
Fishers and consumers, because you are a consumer, and because you're a consumer, it gives you a certain role in the fisheries industry. And it is an important role that consumers play, because without consumers, we have no fishers.
Definitely. And if there is a book or a guide cooperative, that can maybe be amended to say it's not just for fishers as well.
Indeed, that is something that has to be done under the bylaws and the cooperative bylaws, and that has been slated. And it is just a matter of time for us to do this. Of course, as I said, everything takes time.
Yes.
So on that note,
Time 3 after 11 in the event I may not have you all here before the season. Now is your time, to send you all greetings.
I would like to wish everybody, I would say, an enjoyable and safe Christmas season. And I would like to wish everybody everything that they need for the coming new year.
I receive.
I thought you it was as easy as that. Well, my opportunity to say thank you so much. It's been immense pleasure as always. Wealth of information was actually shared here today, and I hope persons paying attention, especially when it comes to, our Soufriere Bay, coral reef, and taking the necessary measures to ensure that it is kept in the best possible manner. And of course, we have to bear in mind it's an informed generating initiative for persons. And kudos to all of you all who have completed your training and are now certified. Moving forward, thank you so much. I look forward to more discussions from the cooperative and the DOF as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you to our listening audience, those who join us online. Thank you so much to you via frequency. It has been House Guest Edition for today, Thursday, the 21st of November, 2024. Have a productive one. We're out.
Talk shows, and we heard you. 88.5 Sufra FM presents House Guest, a brand new, fresh fortnightly feature airing on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. House Guest will showcase a cadre of professionals from doctors and entrepreneurs to the next door friendly neighbor. So tune in as we network the community with a platform for open, frank, and informative discussion. Only on Sufra FM.